Hey, it's Alan here.
And Bree.
And
We
we
are
are
the hunter and the hippie.
Connected through yoga and bonded by our love of the wild places and the love for outdoors, we've come together to share our conversations about life.
Well, maybe more so what we've learned or are continuing to learn about life.
And there's no one way to do it. Life, that is.
And hopefully provide you with some teeny tiny bits of inspiration to connect deeper with yourself, others, and our great Mother Earth.
All right. Enough already about the podcast. Let's just get to the podcast. Hey. I had to do it on purpose.
I know. Oh, boy.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going well.
I feel like it's been a while since we spoke, but maybe it hasn't.
It really hasn't.
A lot has happened.
Yes.
Since we spoke last, but
I was gonna say, I think it's been like a legit only 2 weeks since the last time. So
yeah. So you got a lot going on. You're moving into a new casa.
Yes. So I was just talking about how I used to always overcommit myself. And I know I've said in past episodes that I don't like to be busy. Like, I pride myself on not being busy, and I don't like that word in general. I think it's it's like, anyway, all that to say, I used to always overcommit myself and say yes to everything and then burn myself out. And I no longer do that, but sometimes I have to be reminded of why.
A little gentle reminder.
Yeah, like I have to be reminded why I don't overcommit. And so on occasion, I overcommit myself and learn the lesson of this is why just don't give yourself buffer time for everything. And again, it's all really wonderful things that I'm excited to do. But in reality, all of that back to back, no matter how fun and amazing it is, it doesn't give me the space, the downtime that I just need to function at my best.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going actually down to Moab for a day.
Oh shit.
So my overcommitment
is that's a 6-hour drive for me.
10 actually to where I'm going 11 and a half hours.
Holy fuck.
So I have a good
for
friend
a day.
running the Moab 240.
Oh,
and back in August, I committed to, he doesn't ever ask for pacers. Like, he's very self-sufficient. He's doing 3 200+ mile races this year. This is his last one. And he asked me to pace. And back in August, I'm going to be transitioning into moving into a new home. But at the time, we thought the house would close in mid-September. So when I committed in August, I didn't think I would have housing stuff to be managing at the time. And so I said yes. And I planned to kind of like make a nice trip out of it and go down, like take my time going down and be available to pace him whenever he needed. And the last plans were for me to finish the last 34 miles with him. And turns out, like, I have flooring going in, furniture arriving, washer, dryer, like all this stuff happening. And was like, I made a commitment and I'm standing by my word and I'm going to make it work. And that means I'm driving a day down there and going to run with him for not the last 34 miles, but a middle section and then drive back so I can, make it happen. But it's like integrity of my word.
That's it. That's all you have. Without it, you're not whole. You're not complete. I love it. That's
I think fantastic. You can always like readjust your integrity. Like you can always make a new commitment and it's challenging because of like at what expense, right?
Yep.
But this again, like this is my lesson of like, okay, I had a retreat last weekend that I hosted. I'm going into hunting season next Friday. Regardless of like the house stuff and other work stuff, putting something in the middle of those two is overcommitting,
Yeah,
and so even though it like turned into a bigger overcommitment than I expected, it's just like that good reminder of like, no, why would you do that? Your work, like, retreat weekends are like full on, and you go back into your regular work week without really time off. And I'm prepping for elk season, so I know in hindsight should have given myself that time, and that's where I say I have to on occasion relearn my overcommitment habits. And
I think that though, there's, we don't have to go down this whole path, but like there's, busy, like I told you my thoughts on busy, we don't have to go through that, but right, like we make time for what we want and need in our life, right? Like that's the key, right? Like I always feel like busy is just like this excuse of like, oh, I didn't call you because I'm busy. Well, no, I just didn't call you because I didn't make time for that. And right, and like I made time for other things. But I think that there's ebbs and flows of like of for lack of better words, busyness. And I think sometimes it's easier to manage than others. And when you're right, so the Moab 240 has always been this date, right? So, and you committed in August. The variable is the house, right? Whereas there wasn't ever a date. You thought there was a date, but there wasn't ever a date, and that's the problem in real estate, right? There's never a date, and something usually goes wrong, and it either pushes it back or moves it forward, and so it's, you also, right, I think that we as people have to be fluid in our, I don't want to say in our integrity, right? Because there's, right, you're still keeping your word, right? Yeah, it's a different section, right? There's an impact to that, but like you could have just easily said, oh, I'm not going, I got this house stuff, and your friend may or may not have understood. We give ourselves these outs when life gets difficult. We're like, oh, right, like most people are like, oh, I have to drive 12 miles for a day or 12 hours for a day, and that would have been the easy out for anyone. And I applaud you, right, for staying true to your word. And right, like it's, sometimes it sucks to, right, like we know, right, like you and I both know because we've been there, we used to overcommit. And I don't know that this is necessarily an overcommitment. I mean, it might feel like it, but it's more of like, yeah, I committed to these things, and then shit just got shifted around, and now we're here, and now you're having to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the overcommitment was not, again, the house stuff I can't control, but I know myself, in like the fact that I each of that weekend is bookended with a retreat the previous weekend, and then elk season starting that next weekend. And I really, this is my first elk season, which means like I want to be able to put the time in to, again, go shooting, go scouting. And now I, like, by committing to the Moab race, I took away from that, and so regardless, how stuff makes it just a lot more and made me change my plans. But looking back, I'm like, I shouldn't, had said yes in the first place. But it is it is an honor to be able to, especially for someone who doesn't typically have pacers. Like, I think it was that kind of, I feel this is like really a special ask.
Yeah, for sure.
From someone, and I wanted to
be a part of it.
Be a part of that. So
yeah,
I'm stoked.
It's pretty cool to be a part of it, right? Like someone racing the 240. It's a huge race, and and then like you said, someone who normally isn't paced I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So that's really cool that
Yeah, I'll
that
have
you
to
have
give
that
him
opportunity.
a shout out too, because he's doing the Triple Crown of 200s this year, and the Tahoe race got canceled because of
Just the
fires.
fires, yeah.
hmm But you could still be a Triple Crown 200er by making your own. And
Mm.
he actually did Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim 5 times. And
Holy shit.
he set the FKT for 3 rim to rim to rims, 4 rim to rim to rims, and 5 rim to rim to rims.
Whoa, that's insane.
Self-supported.
No, wow.
So,
That's unbelievable.
yeah.
Give it just a quick breakdown for those that are listening that might not
No, at the rim to
like
rim.
no understand what rim to rim is, and or rim to rim to rim, and
Yeah.
and FKE, and
Yeah.
just a quick explanation just so people
So,
have an idea of how impressive. Not only is it 240 miles or 200 plus miles, but it is, yeah.
yeah, so the rim to rim is basically, I think he started on the south rim. So, the Grand Canyon has the south rim, like it's a canyon, right? So you have the southern edge or the rim, and then you have the northern side. And I don't remember how much vert it is. I wish I had those stats, but so basically the rim to rim to rim means he goes from the south rim down to the valley bottom, climbs out to the north side of the canyon or the top of the north rim, and then goes back down the valley and up to the south rim of the canyon. And he did that 5 times, and I think it's a total of, is it like 24 miles rim to rim?
So I pulled up the stats for you.
Oh, cool.
And it depends on the trail.
Yeah.
But the most traveled one, like the one that most people do, which is likely this one. I mean, who knows, but it's likely this one, is the North Kaibab Trail. It's a little over 8,200 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
Right, which is nuts. It's 14.3 miles.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. That's the first section going down, and then you have the 9.6 miles going back up the other side.
Yeah.
Which is 6,860 feet going up, giving it a total of 24 miles.
Yeah.
So you have 8,200 feet going down, 6,800 feet going up, 24 miles. And then he did that.
And then one round of that rim to rim to rim, that means he did 14,000 feet over in 48 miles.
Right.
And he did that 5 times.
5 times. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. So real quick, just 14,000 feet
times 5.
That's 70,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah. What's Everest?
Everest is 28.
Okay.
Right, I believe.
He's crazy. He did an Everest on Mount Morrison in Colorado. So
really?
He did his own, like he basically, I don't know how many times he climbed. He went up Morrison this summer in a one go, like, one push type of thing, but he did the equivalent, I think, of Everest in terms of vert.
Everest is 29,032 feet.
Yeah.
So in the rim to rim to rim 5 times, he climbed Everest more than twice, more than almost 3 times.
Yeah.
Just in elevation, and then so 48 miles times 5 is, so he did 240 miles. Insane.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Good for him. What's his name?
His name's Brandon Worthington.
Brandon Worthington.
So he's like a secret crusher. That's awesome. But he so the FKT is fastest known time, and so he got the fastest known time self-supported for 3 rim to rim to rims, 4 rim to rim to rims, and 5 rim to rims to rims.
That's insane.
Yeah. So
good for him.
yeah.
We
So it's
are,
like,
we
how
are,
can you say no to like pacing
right.
someone like that? Hopefully he doesn't drop me.
You get there.
I know. I'm like running with him and I can't keep up. And I'm like, you ran 110 miles and I step in and I can't even do it.
You're fresh legs and you can't even run 34 with them.
You know, I haven't been, I mean, I've just been on a running break. So it's actually a legit concern that I have.
I'm sure you're going to do fine. It's amazing what humans are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of us, I mean, like I definitely have the thought, fuck, I can't do 240 miles. I mean, over time, if I train for it, I'm sure I can, but
yeah,
right. Like it's insane.
Well, you have to want to too.
Yes, I don't want to. But we're capable of anything we put our mind to, right? Like, you know, outside of like the silly science fiction type things, like flying without aid, right? Like, you know, like you could do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah.
And it's fucking incredible. I love it.
Well, I feel like that is actually probably a good segue into perhaps your archery season. Just
yes.
Let's hear it.
Yes. You can do anything that you put your mind to.
Right?
And I did and I did it this season. I'm so fucking excited. Like I'm still ecstatic about and I still don't believe it. It's like imposter syndrome times a million. And like if you're on video, you see like I have this elk head hanging on my wall already. Like I've been so ecstatic about it. Like I look at it every day, and I have a special lighting right here that like it lights up just the elk head, and it's like I didn't do that. And it's crazy because I've been hunting for 4 years, and this is my 3rd year bow hunting. So I had never picked up a bow prior to 3 years ago. Prior to that, I had only hunted for a year with a rifle. And yeah, I mean, some people, the elk hunting odds with a bow in Colorado is 14%. Right, so the odds of getting an elk, any elk with a bow, never mind a bull, right? Any elk with a bow is 14%, which the odds, right? What's the movie? The odds are not in your favor. What's the movie with Jennifer Lawrence?
I don't know.
The Hunger Games.
I was gonna say. So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, that's a good reference too. Yes, Dumb and Dumber. Right? Yeah.
1 in a
1 in a million. So you're telling me there's a chance? And it's funny, right? Like that's the right. Many people take the approach of the odds aren't in my favor.
Yeah.
Right? Many people take that and not me. Like I'm a relentless son of a bitch. Like that was totally me. Is like, so you're telling me there's a chance? Like absolutely, I am going to do this until it happens. And I made a little post about it, and that's the thing is I'm not smart. I am not right like the fastest, the strongest, the smartest. What I am is the most resilient. Like I don't fucking stop. That's the problem, right? Like I am never going to stop. Like once I know I want to do something, there is nothing that is going to stop me. It might take longer than someone else. I might do it the harder way, right? But I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to get it done. And it's just like, right? Like it's just like a baby with walking, right? How long does a baby try to walk? And the answer, right, that's a stupid question, right? It's like no one asks that. No one says, oh, how long is that baby going to try to walk for before it gives up, right? It's dumb, right? The baby is going to try to walk until it walks.
Mm-hmm.
And another really good analogy, if you've ever played with ants, so this is the year of act like a child, right? If you never played with ants as a kid, this is your homework for today. Go outside, find an anthill, not a red anthill. Make sure they're black ants, and make sure they're not bullet ants either. If you're in South America listening to this, no bullet ants. But right, like if an ant is traveling, right, like along the sidewalk, and you put your finger in the path, what does the ant do? It goes around.
Mm-hmm.
It goes around. And no matter how many times you do that, no matter how many times you put your finger or you put your hand, your arm, or any obstacle in the way, it just goes around. It always works to go around, right? Its goal is to get wherever it's going. We have no clue where it's going, but right, you're just making it very late for something. But like it never stops, right? It never says, oh, there's just, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to go be an ant anymore. I'm just going to stop right here and give up. And that's me. Right? Like I am going to fucking do the thing that I said I was going to do. And sometimes it gets really hard. Sometimes like this elk season, I was ready to call it quits because elk hunting is fucking hard. God, elk hunting is so hard.
Oh, you're making me really excited here.
Oh, Lord.
I can't
Just
wait.
Just wait. Like, I'm not doing it any justice. Elk hunting. I got my first elk rifle last year, so 3 years into rifle hunting. Mm-hmm. And then I got my first elk this year, right? Spoiler alert. I got my first elk this year in archery 3 years into it. So, it's not fucking easy, and it wears on you physically, but I think more so like I'm built, like over the years I've trained to deal with the physical beatings, but it's the mental beatings that like you go out there and you just don't see elk and you're like, fuck, like this sucks. Or, you know, I took a shot last year on an elk and missed, and right, like, you know, like that's the like fuck, that was my opportunity. And yeah, it's just it's tough, and you have to not allow yourself to quit, and that was absolutely what I faced this year. You know, because I went out the first opening day, and I had a 35-yard shot on a cow elk, a female elk, and I didn't take it. I got to full draw. I could have taken the shot. I could have taken her down. I didn't take it because I wanted a bull. And like, that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
And some people think that's stupid, right? And, I mean, this year it worked out for me, thankfully. But yeah, it's a gamble. And what is it? A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush?
Oh, I've never heard that one.
No? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Right. So, right. Like it's like, what do you have in front of you that's better than nothing? Right? It's better than this thing that may or may not happen. So I passed on it reluctantly. And, yeah, I went out a second weekend, and what I did the second weekend, I did something different, right? So the first weekend, I'm gonna break this down, right? Because we have time and people are listening, and you want to hear, right? Like, yeah, I got the bull, like it's hanging above my wall, 5x5 bull, right? Like, there's the short story, right? Like, I got it. But I went out. So the first time I went out, I hiked 4.5 miles to set up camp, uphill, both ways, in the snow. Both directions in the snow. But no, really, I hiked in 4.5 miles uphill, right? So parking lot, trailhead is, I believe, 8,600 feet, and I set up camp at 10,000 feet. So 4.5 miles uphill, and set up camp to hunt another about mile, 2 miles in. And my goal was just to sit in a spot that I know elk were going to come because they needed water.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a much different approach than like going out, like just constantly moving around. It was just sitting there and just letting the time go by until something comes in. And I knew that really was the approach that I needed to take. And after that trip, the second trip, I was already in my head. I didn't want to hike. I didn't want to hike 4.5 miles with 60 pounds on my back, carrying my food, my camp, right? Like what a lot of people don't realize is like, I have to have everything, right? You understand this, but I have to have everything to survive on my back, right? That's water filters, that's food for the time that I'm going to be out there. I'm going alone, so I need first aid to be able to administer first aid to myself, as well as satellite phone, to call for help for myself if needed, God forbid, as well as everything else, just right, the necessities of life, as well as my weapon, everything to process an elk and then to carry an elk out. And I just was in my head and I didn't want to do that. And so I found a different part of the area that I could hunt, and I could hunt from my truck. And elk hunting doesn't work when you hunt from your fucking truck. Like, I knew this already, right? Like I knew it already, but I wasn't listening to myself.
Yeah.
Or that's the problem, is I was listening to myself, and I was like, oh, just hunt from the truck. And that resulted in fucking nothing like I expected. And it resulted in frustration and me realizing and me telling myself, it's my mantra, right? Work for what you want. You have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and this applies to anything, right? I talk about hunting in like my yoga classes. I don't expect anyone or anything to agree or do the things that I do, but it's applicable to all things, right? The thing that I do is the same thing that you do, right? Like, you're getting into hunting. Let's say you didn't hunt though. Let's say you just ran, right? You ran 240-mile races, which you don't do yet. I'm sure you're gonna get there.
No.
We'll see.
100.
You say no now.
My next is I think it's actually 110-mile self-supported I wanted to do, and then there's 140 or 50.
I'll come run 3 miles with you.
Okay. You can bring me water and food.
on flat ground. That sounds great. I would love to do that. But I share my experience hunting so you can relate it to your running, right? Or whatever the thing is. The thing doesn't matter, right? The thing has all the excuses tied to it, right? You've never run 110 miles. You don't want blisters. You don't want wet feet. You don't want, right? Like, name the fucking excuse and it's there, right? And
well, it's even with my Moab thing, right? It's like I could have easily been like, I'm going to drive 11 and a half hours each direction to run 30 miles with my friend for one day.
5 hours, 6 hours. I'm going to drive 24 hours to run for 6.
Yeah. Like, that's stupid. Very easy to talk yourself out of that.
Right. Absolutely. So that's why I share all the things that I share, and my hunting isn't about hunting. My hunting is about life, right? And pick the thing that you're doing, or that you're supposed to be doing, that you're not doing, and apply my story, replace hunting with that thing. And that's going to be, right, your hunting. So and to get that thing, you will never, right? Or very rare. I shouldn't say never. Always and never, terrible words. But you're right. I'm gonna say never, because you will never, because it's either a fluke or 100% luck if you get the thing before you do the work. Always, right? Even if it happens once, it's never gonna happen again, right? Like, the elk is only gonna cross the highway once, and for you to put an arrow in it, right? Other than that, the elk is always up on the mountain. But I want to stress that again. You have to do the work before you can get the thing. And it comes no sooner. And for me, it was 3 years of work. I had to do the 3 years of work, right? It was 3 years of mistake after mistake after mistake. And each one of those things was the culmination to allow me to get the thing that I did today,
Mm-hmm.
that I do today, that's hanging on my wall, that's in my freezer, right? I did the work. And then from there, right, I now have that experience. I now have this 3rd year of experience. So hopefully, right, it's funny, people, I had someone already asked me, like, oh, are you going to hunt again next year? And right, I am absolutely hunting again next year, right, with a bow, for elk, for a bull, because 1, I enjoy it, but 2, what if it was a fluke? And I always have to do things at least twice, right? Because what if it's a fluke? And that's how my mind works, is like when I lifted over 400 pounds for a deadlift the first time, I didn't do it once. Lifted it up, put it down, lifted it right back up again. First time could be a fluke. I'm going to make sure, right? And then that allows me, right? And I don't really care what people say, but if people say, oh, it was a fluke. Nope, did it a second time. Right? It wasn't. And it's all that work, all that little work, the 3 years of those experience of me hunting. It's now all that's going to tie into my success next year and the year after that.
Wouldn't you even go? Wouldn't you even go to the extent of, like, when I'm hearing you say this, what stands out to me, and this might just be my own personal, well, it is my personal kind of opinion around it, and it might not be yours, but it's, of course you're going to, because it's not about it's about putting meat in the freezer and getting the elk, but it's not about, it's that same cliche of, it's not about the destination, it's the journey, right? That's so it. Like that deadlift, yes, the deadlift is like the means to the journey, but the journey is why you're in it. And that's with everything. Like, it's not like, oh, I got my elk and I can, and you wouldn't put that 3 years of time into it if it was just about getting the elk, right? It's so much bigger than that. And it's coming back to, again, that process. Like, you have to be in it for the process, or else you also won't be, quote unquote, successful in it.
Right.
And when you're in it for the process, it actually doesn't, like, yeah, you were probably disappointed the last few years, but it didn't stop you from doing it again, because you're enjoying the process of elk hunting.
Meh.
Type 2 fun.
It borders type 3 at times. But no, you're so right. Like, Jim Rohn, a motivational speaker from back in the day, he's unfortunately dead. If you're not familiar with him, check him out. But he has a saying, right? Set a goal, not to achieve the goal. It's not about what you get, it's about what you become.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. It's the journey. What have I become in the last 3 years? Right? And who do I need to be? Who do I need to be the person who kills a bull elk with a bow and arrow? And it's a long answer, but I need to be a better husband. I need to be a better friend. I need to be a better brother. I need to be a better worker. Okay, well, why? Right? People are like, how the hell does that have anything to do with that? Well, okay, I need to, in order for me to hunt elk and do it successfully, I have to strength train, right? There's a lot of strength training that I do to prepare myself for elk, right? That is hours upon hours every week that I spend in the gym, away from my family, away from my wife, away from my friends, right? For this passion. So that takes out time from those things. So when I'm taking away from time from those things that are incredibly important to me, right? My number one is me. My number two is my wife, right? And from that, right? And so elk is below her, but I'm now sacrificing time from her to do this elk thing. And so what that means is I have to now become better at being a better husband and a friend to her in the time that she gets. Right. And so I have to be better all around. Mm-hmm. Right. It's not about just being stronger and about running through the woods, because I could just drop everything in my life. I could drop my job. Right. I run out to, go run after elk during work hours, and my boss is going to start questioning, right? What the hell are you doing? Mm-hmm. Right. He doesn't care about the elk hanging on my wall. He cares about the results that I'm giving him in my job. Right. My yoga students, right. I have to be a better yoga instructor when I'm saying, hey, I can't teach yoga. Right. Mm-hmm. How can I, right. And whenever I cancel a class on them for hunting, how can I be better for them when they don't get me, right? When I'm out here doing this thing that I want to do, that I sometimes love to do, right? Like is right. Who are they getting? How are they getting it? Right. And it's not just, sometimes it's, hey, got to cancel class, bye. But what can I give them? Mm-hmm. What can I make them to know that, hey, what can I say? Hey, I still care about you. I still love you, but I got to go do this thing. Mm-hmm. And so doing this one thing, it's made me all around better. And that's the journey, right? It's not about the elk, right? Like, yeah, dude, I fucking love that there's an elk hanging on my wall and my freezer's full. But again, back to that point, who have I become? Mm-hmm. And what's really fucking cool is I can look back in these last 3 years and tell you the person I am today is such a better person, right? Whether I got this year or not, I am a better friend. Mm-hmm. I am a better husband. I am a better support system, right? I'm better to myself because of it, right? Whether I got it or not, I would be saying this no matter what, because all of the journey has prepared me for everything that I've come to face. So I love that you bring that up.
Well, and I think that's I look at the work I do just with like private clients and within yoga. Mm-hmm. And, I talk a lot about I guess an easy way to say it would be like neutral awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So within the fluctuations of the human experience, right? Like being able to have this like calm or this ease. And it's not to not experience the fluctuations, like the ups and downs. But it's where the end results don't just make you crumble, right? And so it's that idea of you can still have preferences and desires and wants.
Yeah.
Right. So in the elk hunting, yes, you want to bring home an elk. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, if you don't, is life still able to go on? Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think being really invested in the process and the journey, and that's like that idea of presence, of really experiencing the presence, is what allows you to not let those results impact and just destroy you, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Because then if you get the elk, the other side of it is being attached to always needing to get an elk every year, right? And so that's where it's like, once you get it, you don't want to let it go. Like you live in this fear of losing it. And so it's that practice is really just is a practice of presence.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And it's being in the moment, and there's so much of in the moment through the journey, right? Like it's in the moment of getting stronger. It's in the moment of, even when you're doing that hike, that 4.5 mile hike up the hill, right? It's like the elk isn't there yet, right? Like it's now, like you're saying, it's in that present moment. Who do you need to be in that moment, and what do you need to appreciate in that moment?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you can't be tied to the outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't, if I don't get it, I'm never doing this again. Right? And that's where I was, absolutely, right? Like, and it's not, you have to manage that. It's not like I say that, or you say this, that, oh, I'm just going to be in the moment, and then that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're human, right? I'm absolutely like, fuck this, I'm never doing this again, this sucks. Right? If I don't get an elk this time, screw it. I want nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, that's, you can't have that mentality.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that you really want.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna find a way to make it work. You're gonna find a way to make it happen.
And I think it's also, and I do this a lot with like my big outdoor objectives, but just
Mm-hmm.
checking back in that I'm doing it for like
Mm-hmm.
the quote unquote right reasons, right?
Yeah,
Again, like
absolutely.
I think like going into my first elk season, I'm like just super stoked, honestly. I subbed out my yoga classes for like that first week that I'm in
Mm-hmm.
season. And I'm just stoked to like go for 10 days and be in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm looking forward to, obviously, I would love to again have a freezer full of meat.
Yep.
But I'm just, like every aspect of that, of the process of elk hunting is like, so I'm just super excited for.
Yeah.
Because like who does, I mean, a lot of people don't, not everyone likes the wilderness, but like for those of us passionate about the outdoors, like who doesn't want to like go be out there early in the morning hearing, nature doing its
Mm-hmm.
thing
Yeah.
and just be disconnected for that period. And
Yeah.
I know on all levels, this is like, again, that process is going to feed my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where like with running stuff, I had to think, am I doing this to prove something, or am I doing this really
Mm-hmm.
just for the pure love of what I'm doing? And that's where I think, again,
Yeah.
that like the practice of presence, of checking in with yourself, seeing where the ego has hijacked your intention and where you can come back to the like really the purity of like a heart-centered choice of,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And yeah, you do know. You said it. You articulated it well. And one of the things that I'll add is, you said you love, right, something that you love to do. There's going to be times you don't like doing it though,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the thing, is you have to check yourself, right? And you have to make sure that, yeah, you're doing it for the right reasons, but don't give yourself excuses to get out of it either,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I love hunting, I love the end result of it, and there's times where I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And in those times, you have to be able to say, but I do love it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? And this is the work that needs to be done to continue to do the thing that I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you love something, right? It doesn't. My wife loves me, but I bet there are times where she doesn't like me, right? So and it's those times. It's that's the test,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to make sure you're staying on track.
Yeah, that's, I
Um,
mean, spot on for me. I haven't, since my big run, I ran a lot that following week, and then I had my 2 weeks in Florida. I had a
mm-hmm,
wedding. I've been traveling, all this stuff, and my running hasn't picked back up to what it normally is. And it's been hard. Like,
mm-hmm,
it's like it takes a
yeah,
lot of motivation to get me out running, doing something I love. And I know we've talked about like, it's just also remembering that cyclical nature.
mm-hmm,
Like you're going to have tough times with the stuff that you love, but if you just kind of have that consistency, that like resilience, like eventually it'll come back and there'll
mm-hmm,
be things that remind you.
yeah. And did you cut out?
No.
Oh, okay. Um, and then the other thing, and then I can get back into the story. But the other thing is, we talked about this too with you with integrity. Um, I talk a lot about who I am in my yoga classes and to my friends and to my family, and it's not about proving anything to them, but it's about keeping my word. It's about keeping my integrity. So when I say I am something, I need to make sure I'm acting in accordance to that. Right? Otherwise, I'm not that thing. And it's okay to not be that thing if that's truly what you want. But when I say I'm this thing, I want everyone to know, no, I am that thing. And then it's the actions that I take that make me that thing. It's not the words. It's not me telling you who I am. It's me doing the thing and showing you who I am. And this is a huge motivator for me right here. And it is we're trying to grow our family. Most people know this, and right, I put it out on social media. We're actually in the adoption process, and we've had infertility issues and all sorts of problems, right, trying to conceive. And one of the big motivating factors is I think about my future child, and I think about when I tell my future child who I am. And we have to always remember the children are watching, right? So you can tell them who you are, but if your actions don't match what you're telling them, there's going to be an issue. And a huge motivation for me is making sure, right, I think about my future child, and when I say I am this, I want my child to know that I truly am that. And for like this is a great example, right? The hunting, but when I climbed Long's Peak, I could have, I was so ready to turn around on Long's Peak, and it was that thought that kept me going. Is my child isn't going to know that I'm a quitter, right? I'm going to do this because that's what I said I was going to do. And like for me, that's like the biggest and best example you can set. And that is all the motivation that I need, right? I don't need any of this other stuff, right? It's all about, right, my future children. I want them to know who I am, and I'm going to tell them, but I'm also going to show them and make sure that they know what a father should be, what a man should be, what a person should be, and hopefully set that example. So on to the rest of the hunt.
Oh, yes.
So I didn't want to go back, but I figured out, right, like you have to do the work. And it was the last weekend of the season. So archery season's typically like 30 days ish. And it was the last weekend of the season, and I was like, all right, I'm going to make one final push. I'm going to go and do this thing and see what I can make happen. And I had gone for a mountain bike ride with my buddy Ganesh, and I was telling him about the weekend and how I wasn't looking forward to it, and just I was going to go do it and make it happen. And he was like, "Oh, can I come along?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like, pack mule, hell yeah, you can come along. So my buddy Ganesh came along with me, and we set a plan. And the plan was, right, we're going to leave early Friday morning, get to the trailhead. We're going to hike in. We're going to hike in that 4.5 miles. So same plan as that first trip: is hike in, set up camp, go up to this water source, hang out at the water source, and hunt, and do that until success. So we do exactly that. Friday we leave, we get there, we hike in, we set up camp, and there's still some light left, and we're like, let's go hunt for the rest of the night and see what we can make happen, and then we'll go from there. So we get up to this area, and an animal spooks, and it breaks some branches, and I'm like, oh shit, right? Like this is it. There could be an elk. And there was an elk, and the elk started to bark at me. And when an elk barks, it's not like a dog barking, but it's similar. But that's not a good sign. So when you're out hunting, if an elk starts barking at you, that's not good. They know you're there, and
Yeah.
they're hightailing it out.
They're telling everyone, let's go.
Yes, yeah. And so so they started barking. So she started barking, and then he took off. And I was like, all right, fuck it. We'll just go sit, wait. And then I ended up hearing a bull bugle. And I was like, maybe something will still happen. Nothing happened. And we hiked back to camp, ate dinner, and we get in the tent to go to bed. And we're in the tent, and Ganesh fell asleep, and I'm laying in the tent, and I sleep terrible outdoors. Mm. And I'm just laying there, and around midnight, out of nowhere, around midnight, multiple bulls, probably about 5 bulls, start bugling, and like all around me, like 360 degrees. There's like 2 over here, 1 over here, 1 behind me, just bulls bugling like crazy. And I've never gotten to experience this, or like full blown rut. Mm-hmm. And like I'm in it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then at right close to like 1 o'clock in the morning, I hear a bugle. Couldn't have been more than 50 yards from me. Mm-hmm. And then I hear footsteps. And then I hear he didn't bark, but he was like huffing and puffing at me. At the tent. He probably saw the tent. So we literally had an elk come into camp, see the tent, and he was like, and then you heard him like scatter off. Right? Like he saw the tent, he didn't like it, he scattered off. But then they just kept bugling. They bugled all night. They bugled until I shot my elk. Wow. It was incredible. It was amazing. So the plan was to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, while it's dark out, and do the camp thing, and then leave camp in the dark and hike to where we were going in the dark, get to our hunting spot before light, and then wait for the thing to happen. So I wake Ganesh up, and I'm like, hey, we're not doing that thing. And I was like, listen, and like I made him listen to what's going on. I was like, we are in the area we want to be in. Mm-hmm. Like they are here. We are hunting. So the plan was wake up, a little closer to light, get up, move around camp very gently, right? Normally when you're moving around camp, like you sort of don't care. Mm-hmm. This was like, I got out of my tent with an arrow nocked. Yeah. I was like, there could be a fucking elk outside my tent. Mm-hmm. And so we got up, we moved about very quietly. And then we got ready to go, and we put our packs on, and we start moving. We're moving through the forest. We didn't make it 250 yards before I saw the elk that I shot, mm-hmm. which is amazing. So we're walking up towards this pond. It's daylight out, and we're walking, and I'm cow calling. I'm making cow calls, and I have 2 bulls bugling. There's one out to like my right, one out to my left. And so I'm cow calling, they're bugling, and we're moving nice and slow. And we get to this opening, and I stopped like in the trees when we got to the opening at first, and mm-hmm. I was like, oh, let's just stop real quick, see what's going on. Nothing happened. So we started making our way out into the opening. Like we got sort of into the opening, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I should stop again. For some reason, I just stopped. Mm-hmm. And I stopped, and I look out to my left, and through the trees, I see movement. And I was like, oh shit. So I knock an arrow, and I'm trying to get my release onto my bow. Mm-hmm. And so you have to hook your release, right, the thing that you draw your bow back with, onto a little like D-ring, little like piece of string on your bow. And this thing could have been 7 feet big, and I would have missed it. I was so fucking nervous. I'm like looking for, like trying to get this thing on there. And I'm like, oh my God, right? I'm trying to like control my breath. Finally, I get it on. And now the elk is out in the open and he's looking at me. He knows I'm there. So I'm in camo. Ganesh is right behind me. And all I keep saying, like while I'm doing the things that I need to do, I just keep saying to Ganesh, don't move. Don't move. Don't. That's all I kept saying. Ganesh, don't move. And the whole way. Yeah, hilarious. And I'm just saying it like really like don't move. And I can't see him, so I'm sure he's not moving, but I'm just like, oh my God, don't move, don't move. So I get my release and the elk spooks a little bit. And I thought the elk was gonna run off. And he ran he probably was in about 40 yards and he ran about 20 yards away. Mm-hmm. And so I have my arrow nock, my release on, and as he's running, I start to pull out my rangefinder to get a range, and he stops. And he turns, he's facing away, but he's looking at me. So the term is called quartering away, right? So you're probably familiar with it, but so his head is facing, if you're looking at a clock, right, would that be like 10 o'clock? And but he's looking at me, so his head's like turned around and he's looking at me. And I range him and I get 66 yards. And 66 yards is a very, very far shot with a bow. It is possibly border unethical. I think that's up to each person, right? And so I range him at 66 yards, and I'm like, fuck. I've taken that shot hundreds, probably thousands of times. And I'm like, all right. So I set I put my rangefinder back. He's still looking at me. I'm doing all this. And I set my sights on my bow to about 66 yards, what I think it's going to be. I grab my release, and he's still looking at me. And he goes to turn his head away. And as he starts to turn his head away, I go to draw back my bow, and he sees, and I stop, and he like turns back and looks at me. And I'm just like, and I'm still telling Ganesh, don't move, don't move, don't move. And he does it again, and he turns his head away, and he gets his head fully away. And I draw my bow back, full draw, get it to full draw, and now he's looking at me. He saw the movement, he turned back, he's looking at me. And I'm like, all right, here we go. 66 yards. This is it. I got it. And I put my pin right where his heart is, or where I believe his heart is. I level out my bow with my bubble, and the elk lets out a bugle. It was so amazing. Like I'm watching through my eyes, through my bow, and he just lets out this amazing bugle. And right as he's done with the bugle, I just release my release, pull the trigger, let the arrow fly, and the arrow has a very distinct sound when it hits flesh. And it hit, and I knew it hit, and I saw the spot I was aiming turn red. And I was just like, but you're in that moment, you're still doubting everything.
Yeah.
Especially with that far of a shot. And he takes off running. And he runs up this hill. And I'm like, fuck, like, I don't know if that was a good shot. I'm just questioning everything. And he gets to the top of the hill and he slows down. Now, this is his survival. So if I didn't hit him good, if that wasn't a good shot, if I didn't hit him in the lungs or the heart, he is not slowing down.
Yeah.
So the fact that he slowed down was my tell. Like he slowed down, stopped in the wide open, and I was like, yes, like I knew at that moment I hit a good shot. I was like, fuck, yes, like I nailed it. That's awesome. And then he walks a little bit into the woods, and you just hear him go down. You hear branches break, him hit a tree, and you just hear a bunch of noise. And Ganesh and I, we're just like celebrating. We're like jumping up for joy. We're just so freaking happy. It was so incredible. Such an amazing moment. And so with archery, you want to wait usually like an hour for the animal to completely pass and bleed out, because you don't want to spook them. If you spook them while they're in the process of dying, two things can happen. One, you're the threat, and they want to eliminate that threat, so they can have the adrenaline rush and attack you, trample you, and yeah, it's not good. Or they can just run away even further, which is exactly what you don't want, right? You want them to just stay where they're at. So We waited an hour. At about the half hour mark, we went out looking for my arrow. We found my arrow above. You could see the arrow resting on the antlers. Right, we found the arrow, and at this point, I'm still questioning. Right, like I don't see the bull. Right, so I'm still questioning. Like, was it a good shot? I don't know. So we find the arrow, and when you look at the arrow tells you, what kind of shot it was based on the blood that's on the arrow, and a dark, like bright red blood is typically a heart shot. Pink bubbly blood is lungs because of the air, and then like if you get like poo colored blood, or right, like it's typically like intestines or guts, right? That's the one you don't want to see. And we picked up my arrow, and it was bright red. It was just this dark, deep red. And I saw that, and I was like, that's a heart shot. And I was just so freaking happy.
Yeah.
So we wait the extra half hour, and then we go up to the elk, and it didn't make it 50 yards from where I shot it to where it went down. So we're 300 yards from camp, which is amazing. And we just walk up next to it, and yeah, there it is. And I have a video of it. And first thing I do is on video I counted its antlers. So it's a 5x5, has 5 antlers on 5 points on its antlers on each side. And then after that, I have a ritual. I pray with the animal and thank God for providing me with the food and the opportunity. So I did that, and my buddy got to be a part of that, which is just really cool experience to share. Took some photos, and then the real work began. And yeah, it's crazy. So my buddy has never processed an animal, especially like in the woods. He's never processed an animal, period. So it was a learning experience for him, and I really got to process the majority of this elk with assistance. It took us about 3 hours to break it down, debone the elk, get all the meat in bags, get the head off, and yeah, and then it was really funny. So we got very excited, and we're like, all right, we're gonna make this a 2-trip. We're gonna get the elk back to the car and then come back for camp, type of thing. And in my pack, we put a back leg, 2 front legs, and the head. Yes. And in Ganesh's pack, we put a back leg, the back straps, the neck meat, which is way heavier than, probably equal to about the front legs and the head. And I barely could stand up. I stood up with this thing on my back, and somehow I managed to walk back to camp with all this on my back. So I walked 300 yards with probably 120 pounds of shit on my back. And I got back to camp and fell over. It was like, this ain't happening. Ganesh, I have video of Ganesh making it back to camp. He's struggling. All right, this ain't happening. Reevaluate our plan. So we reevaluate, and we get we eventually cut this part short, but we eventually I get a back leg and some of camp back to the truck, and he gets a back leg and some of camp back to the truck, and we're both shot. So this is 5 miles downhill, and just because it's downhill, it isn't easy. Going downhill is hard. And it just so happened at the trailhead, there was an outfitter there, and I went up to the outfitter. I was like, how much to get my freaking elk out on your horses? Because I was like, I'm done. So he told me, and we set an appointment for the next morning. So to go out and ride horses and pick up the elk meat and bring it back to the truck. So that's what we did. We went into town. We stayed at a hotel that night. Got some good sleep. Next morning, Ganesh stayed at the truck. I jumped on a horse with the guide and rode horses for 5 hours. And we went out, picked up my meat, explored, and it was really great because shout out to Sable Mountain Outfitters. because he did a great job. He not only picked up my meat, my head, but he showed me around town. Around town, when I say around town, around like the unit, and in a much faster way, much less tiring way than I would have to explore it myself on a horse. So he just gave me some really good insights, and it was just a great day. So I packed out half of the elk, and then the other half we got to ride a horse, which was I'll be sure to do the entire elk that way next time, because it's exhausting. Yeah. It's tiring. And then we got home, and another buddy, he was so excited for me. He came over and we processed the meat. We cut up the meat. So I do all my own processing. I don't give it to anyone. I want to be able to know myself, and then when I share it with friends and family that, this elk was killed by me, it was processed by me. Right. We know, we've had this conversation, right? We know exactly where this meat has come from, who's touched it. So we processed, got it all packaged up. It's in my freezer. My freezer is full to the brim, which is an amazing feeling. And then, it took some time and processed my elk head into a Euro mount, which is right on the wall behind me, as you can see. It's beautiful. I love looking at it. And and now I'm going to be victor of my spoils, right? Like now, but I'm also realizing that September is 11 months away. And I got to do it again.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, that's the story of elk hunting.
Nice. Well, and I think years. I do appreciate that you said I think oftentimes we hit a goal and then we're just on to the next. And I think something it's important to celebrate, right? We don't spend much time acknowledging our accomplishments or acknowledging all that we've done. And then that's another reason we get burnt out, because we don't look back and be like, oh, but I did this, this, and this. Because it's, that drive is great to be like, okay, I got there, but 11 months, let's go start training.
Yep.
But just a reminder of take a moment, celebrate, any kind of accomplish or feat, especially, you put all this time and effort into it. Cause I think that will help carry you into the next thing,
Absolutely.
So, that's awesome.
Yeah. And part of that is I'm so excited, give meat to friends already. I'm handing out meat, here you go, you take some, enjoy it. Sorry, my Siri not Siri, my Echo is talking for some reason. But it's so cool. That's part of the celebration is providing life to other people, right? This elk had to give its life to provide life to myself and my family and my friends, and it's so cool.
Awesome.
So with that, I want to hear about your scouting experience, but we're out of time.
Yeah,
because we're both on time crunches. But I hope your scouting experience was good and fun, and you have a big season coming up.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for you to get out there and kill an elk.
Well, and it's going to be good weather for, good weather for elk,
snow?
Not for humans.
Is it going to be snowing?
Yeah, next week it starts to snow.
Fantastic.
So I was like, well, that's good.
Colder weather makes them move.
Yeah. So my buddy said he doesn't think there's much of a migration pattern in my area, but it just means last time I went scouting, it was too hot, and so that will be good. So
maybe you'll catch a late rut.
Yeah, I mean,
that'll be awesome.
Winter camping is not foreign for me, so I feel at least I have that experience under my belt.
Yeah. It's going to be so exciting. Can't wait to hear your story.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So with that, I'll end with a journal prompt, and then I'll turn it over to you just to end
Okay.
with some breath.
Yes.
And we'll catch up again soon. So journal prompt, grab your journal, and if you want to write about what, like you just heard, my hunting experience, feel free to do that. But I don't really think that that's everyone's thing. So what I would say is journal about, right, that thing, right? Journal about your hunting. Journal about whatever your thing is. And we already talked about this, but what, how have you not been a person of integrity? And right, like you say you want this thing, and you don't do it, right, because of these really good but lame excuses. Right? No one's saying that the excuses aren't valid or good, right? Like, yeah, like Bree has to drive 24 hours to run for 6. She has a very good, valid reason to not go do this. But that's still an excuse, right? You said you were going to do something. No, do it. So write about that. Write about what your thing is and how this applies to everything that we've talked about. How it applies to your thing in your life, and how you can become better, and how you can better deal with adversity, and how you can be better at being relentless. Again, you don't have to be, take it from me, right? You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be strong, right? You just gotta be unwilling to quit, right? Like you just gotta keep moving forward no matter what it takes. And write about what that looks like, and how going forward. That's the nice thing is every moment we have the opportunity to fix our integrity. Right? Just because you don't have your integrity prior, right, doesn't mean you can't make that work. Right? So here's the opportunity to be whole, to be complete. And now what are you going to do to make that happen? And write about that. And then maybe write a list of some actions that you're going to take today or whenever you're listening to this, in the next week, month, year, to achieve, to accomplish, to start the journey of that thing. And if you have anything to add, please feel free. Otherwise, go ahead and take us away.
Cool. So wherever you're at, just either if you can close your eyes, otherwise find a soft gaze. And if you're doing something, if you can't kind of sit still, if you're in the middle of walking or driving or cleaning the house, right? Again, just soften the gaze so you feel a sense of slight relaxation pouring over the body. And bring awareness into your breath, just noticing the quality of your breath right now. Is it fast or slow? Deep or shallow? And begin to notice how your entire body feels. Any areas that might feel a little dense or tingling. Maybe there's discomfort or pain. Which areas feel open or soft or strong? And just observe how your whole body feels. Maybe even noticing how these sensations change as your awareness moves through the body. And then coming back to the breath, begin to slow down your exhale, taking an inhale naturally and simply slowing down as you breathe out. Notice if this changes the sensations in your body. Notice the impact of your exhale. Maybe there is no impact, and just observe that without judgment or need for it to be different. And now bring to mind one thing that you're proud of yourself from the last week. Nothing too big or too small, right? Just whatever you think of that makes you proud of yourself. Maybe even put yourself back in the experience, imagining the details or sensing the experience. And as you think or visualize this thing you're proud of, how do you feel in your body? What are the sensations that arise here? And can you just feel them? Notice this feeling throughout your whole body. And then release the images or thoughts around the experience and just allow yourself to be left with the feeling. Allow yourself to be left with a knowing that this always exists inside of you. Regardless of the outside world and the fluctuations. You can always come back. You can always access this feeling of pride within you. This sense of joy. This wholeness. And gently drawing your chin towards your chest in a bow of gratitude for giving yourself this time. When you feel ready, slowly fluttering your eyes open.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's good catching up.
Yeah, so good to hear your story. Ah!
Thanks. You're next.
Yeah. No pressure, all the
right.
pressure.
all the pressure.
Awesome.
All right. Have a good run and good hunting season. Can't wait
Thanks.
to talk to you.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.
If you want to follow us and our adventures, you can find both of us on Instagram. I'm at Bree Allison. That's BreAllison.
And I am at The Life of Alan Tatone, underscores between each word. To check out our offerings, yoga, one-on-one trainings, workshops, retreats, and a recorded library, you can find the info on our website, thehunterandthehippie.com.
If you have questions for the podcast, about the podcast, feedback, suggestions, or just want to say hi or find ways to work with us, our email is thehunterandthehippie@gmail.com. And don't worry, all of this will be in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hopefully you weren't tuned out.
To the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.